Strap in, folks. This one is gonna be a little bit different. I'm hoping that this one gets some attention outside the magical community. This is an important subject, which we'll be approaching in a serious manner. And we'll talk about the connection between drugs and magic towards the end, but it's become an important personal issue for me. It's time to confront our culture's indoctrination of their fear towards drugs. Hey folks, this is James, aka Merrick, with another video on Emergent Magick, going chapter by chapter. This is the one I've been dreading. One day soon, we'll need to release a second edition of the Emergent Magick, rebuilding our tribes through ritual and meaning. Zentralal and I have talked about it quite a bit, and currently we're thinking about removing the chapter on drugs altogether. The reason being, no other part of EMK has caused us more grief from our detractors. Trying to convince them otherwise is like hitting our heads against a wall. But you know me, I'm going to slam my head into these bricks one more time. But this time, taking a different perspective than we did in the book. Many of you have probably heard some of this. My recent experience has convinced me it needs to be talked about more. There are still plenty of people out there who need to hear it. Though I doubt my channel will be the thing that reaches them, maybe someone here will pick it up and run with it. Let's get this out of the way. I do not take illegal substances. I certainly do not sell them. No one in the Order of Emergent Magi is giving people drugs. We recommend you follow the laws of your area. Recently, one of my doctors threatened to refuse me treatment if I did not stop using cannabis, a substance where in most states, I could go to a doctor and they would gladly give me a card to buy it at a discount to help alleviate the side effects of chemotherapy. My doctor threatened to not treat my cancer because I told him I had used cannabis in the past. Then, he gave me 3 separate drug tests that showed negative for cannabis. Can you imagine what that's like? To be told they would let you die for using a substance, especially one that has been proven effective for the treatment of cancer? This anti-drug hysteria has gripped our culture so tightly that our doctors will often let people suffer just because of the war on drugs, which is really what I'm here to talk about. Because the way people react to our position on using substances and magic has everything to do with how we have been indoctrinated against these substances, most of it based on lies. President Nixon started the war on drugs in 1971, and for over 50 years, drugs have been winning. Though we should really be clear, there's no such thing as a war on a concept. A war on drugs or a war on terrorism is a war on people. A war that is perpetual by design, completely unwinnable, and people are dying because of it. Hundreds of people per day in the US alone, and thousands per day across the world. And the question is why? And if you're thinking that the people who started the war on drugs did so because they believed it was a public health crisis, think again. In 1994, in an interview with the writer Dan Baum, John Ehrlichman, assistant to the President of Domestic Affairs under President Richard Nixon, spelled it out. You want to know what this was really all about? The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had 2 enemies. the anti-war left, and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and the blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt their communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. The whole thing was concocted to weaponize racism for political purposes and go after the enemies of the military-industrial complex. They absolutely knew what they were doing would not help anyone with drug addiction. It was a way to get rid of inconvenient people. In a recent release of audio tapes made by Richard Nixon, the man himself says,
"Let me say, I know nothing about it. I know that it's not particularly dangerous for us. I know most of the kids would legalize it. But on the other hand, it's the wrong signal this time."
So placing cannabis on Schedule 1, which has resulted in the incarceration of millions of people in the U.S., the majority of them black, was predicated completely on a lie. We have been lied to repeatedly about many substances, and it has caused death and misery for untold millions. Because you see, the most dangerous part of these substances is their prohibition. It's the prohibition that means an unregulated market where drugs are adulterated with fentanyl. It's prohibition that prevents people from seeking treatment. It's prohibition that creates an environment where drug cartels kill people for territory and to protect themselves from law enforcement. Let's talk about another substance, LSD-25. Many have been taught in schools, I know I was, that LSD can inspire people to jump off buildings or engage in other high-risk suicidal behavior, and that it can stay in your system for years with the possibility of flashbacks. More recent journalists have found the vast majority of these stories to be unsubstantiated. Another lie we were told on repeat. A study in 2022 produced by Dr. Richard Zeifman found the opposite to be true. From the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry. As research on classic psychedelic-assisted treatments continues to expand, we can expect that findings will sometimes challenge or elucidate long-held conventional beliefs about the purported dangers of these substances. One such notion has been that they precipitate suicidality and other self-harm behaviors, e.g., jumping off buildings, believing one can fly, walking in front of traffic, in some users. While indeed such cases exist, the meta-analysis of classic psychedelic therapy and suicidality by Zeifman et al. Is one of several recent publications offering compelling evidence to the contrary. The study, which analyzed suicidality data from 7 classic psychedelic therapy trials and found acute and sustained decreases on all relevant measures, warrants optimism for the treatment of suicidality. More lies that have ruined the lives of thousands through incarceration and untold numbers of people who could have used LSD for treatment, except all research was banned in 1967 due to the war on drugs and only has recently been restarted. You must understand the damage this has done to our culture. These beliefs about the need to prohibit certain substances, and let me tell you, I take a lot of legal medications that have worse side effects than LSD. These ideas continue to kill people. And the truly terrifying part is that these manufactured fears have caused medical professionals to disregard evidence-based practice and act as drug warriors. For example, how our medical and social welfare systems treat the drugs methadone and Suboxone, making it incredibly difficult to obtain these life-saving treatments, which in most cases won't be prescribed at all. If they are, obtaining these medications requires a patient to show up to an office on a daily basis to take their medication, placing a massive burden on those who need it if they don't have transportation, and making it incredibly difficult to hold down a job since they have to schedule around their treatments. How many lives have been lost to those who have been unable to get reliable treatment because of our culture's obsession with complete abstinence? I admit, we made a mistake. Tucked into the back of the Emergent Magick book, in an appendix, we wrote about the protocols of the Order of Emergent Magi. Not even a part of Emergent Magick as a whole. And one of the protocols is, magic without drugs isn't. Yeah, we did it to get a rise out of people. And sadly, it worked. As many took it as a challenge, instead of the tongue-in-cheek way it was obviously intended. Though I suppose we owe some explanation as to what we actually meant. We did not say, you must do drugs to do magic. That would be awful. We firmly believe that every individual has the right to say what goes into their own body. Never have we required people to use a substance to participate in a ritual. What we did mean is that drugs are an inherent part of the magical tradition. I feel like there are so many examples that it's insulting to have to list them, but let's go with just a few. To start with, drugs have been a part of our lives since before we were Homo sapiens. From the Harm Reduction Journal, archaeological records indicate the presence of psychotropic plants and drug use in ancient civilizations as far back as early hominid species, about 200 million years ago. Roughly 13,000 years ago, the inhabitants of Timor commonly used betel nut, as did those in Thailand for around 10,700 years. The use of drugs in rituals, such as Animata muscaria by Siberian shamans, ayahuasca by the people of the Amazon basin, psilocybin by the indigenous people of Mexico, cannabis in Hinduism and Islam, datura in Europe, and alcohol by voodoo practitioners and other diasporic traditions, tobacco by the people of North America, are all well documented. There are even some archaeologists who believe the construction of the Jewish tabernacle was for the purposes of the high priest to inhale psychoactive substances. And this list is nowhere near complete. If you doubt the importance of the use of substances in magic, that's just willful ignorance. If you don't want to take drugs, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But when people come at me and say stupid things like, real magicians don't need drugs, I take it extremely fucking personally, because that means you have been so indoctrinated you have willingly become a drug warrior, that you have willfully ignored the mountains of evidence, that you are the problem. You are a person who perpetuates a culture of death. And if you're offended by that, you can never watch this channel again. It won't hurt my feelings. Now, if I haven't put you off with all that, I'm going to ask you to like and subscribe. You know how this works. The more you click, the more you'll see. And I'm at the cusp of being monetized by YouTube, and I'm hoping one more video will do it. Even though I'm sure it will amount to pennies, but it'll open up a lot of options for me, like having paid YouTube subscriptions. Last time out, I told you about my newest endeavor with my brother Zentra L, Silky Screens Print Company. We have our occulture line with some fun designs for folks into the weird and wacky world of magic, including our Babylon Barbie shirts and our Jack Parson shirts. We're reprinting some of our more popular designs like our Into the Depths long sleeve, Peregrine Falcon, and Rockford Rights, which may or may not have been based on actual events. Also back in stock is our popular Take a Hike Bigfoot shirts. Last, the new Scroll of Thoth shirts are here. I've learned a lot about clothing manufacturers since getting into the business, and I've used that knowledge to produce the highest quality shirts you can get. 100% cotton t-shirts, screen printed. Unlike that print-on-demand junk that just wears off after you wash it. T-shirts are available in black and sandstone in limited quantities. They're hot off the press, and if you order now, you might get yours before I get mine. If you folks like them, we'll make more and produce hoodies and work shirts with similar designs. Link for Silky Screens is in the description. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.